Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 18th meeting of the Glenville Town Board. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. For the invocation tonight, I just ask that you take a moment of silence and offer your own intentions. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Let the record show Councilman Tepelani is absent. Councilman Aragosa.
Here.
Councilman Galbowski.
Present.
Councilwoman Worsbowski.
Here.
Supervisor Ketzley.
Here, again, welcome all. It's such a beautiful night to see so many people here at a town board meeting. We do have some changes to the agenda. It's going to make some of you probably happy and some of you may be disappointed, but we are going to remove for the evening item number 15, which is the resolution declaring the proposed firearms training facility exempt from zoning. Item 16, declaring the proposed public safety training center exempt from zoning. And add-on number 2, which is a resolution acknowledging the receipt of a proposal regarding the vacant land on Bly Road, which of course is in regards to the Public Safety Training Center. We are going to add on resolution number 1 as an add-on, which is accepting the lowest bid from Bassett Hatfield regarding the construction of our Glenwood Road sidewalk. The reason for the removal of item 15, 16, and add-on 2 is really threefold. One of the council members who's worked on this and is liaison to the police department, he could not be here tonight, and we thought it was important that he was for a variety of reasons, but he wanted to be part of this vote. Number 2, there are some potential changes that may be occurring to either the site or the project that would not make sense for us to have a decision on this proposal tonight. And number 3, I met personally, I know, with some of the residents the other night. It's clear that there's still some questions. I think there's still some misunderstanding about what the proposal is. I think there's some misunderstanding about what potentially we would have been acting on tonight by this exemption. So I think we need to do more work in communicating with the residents on that. But primarily, there are some developments that are occurring regarding this proposal that we're just not at liberty to speak about at this juncture, but would really necessitate it to be delayed. There's no reason to rush it through, and so we can revisit this hopefully at the August meeting, which is scheduled for August 15th. So those are the changes to the agenda, and we move on to town council reports, and I'll start on my right, Councilman Aragosa.
Just a couple things. As most of us know, Town of Glenville Water is once again tops in the county. Shout out to the water department for their efforts. Number 2, thank you to, I believe, Tom Capola and the police department for a quick response to some issues with truck drivers on Baldwin Road and not following the path that they were given for the project they were working on. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Galbowski.
Just a quick update. I had the honor and privilege of marching in the Outlaws Parade. My third year in a row marching, my first as a council person, marched along with the supervisor, Councilman Aragosa. Always a great time, always great to celebrate our independence through the folks over in Outlaws, and always a festive atmosphere for that parade. I attended the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new fitness equipment over at Indian Meadows Park, along with Councilwoman Worsbowski and Supervisor Ketzley. It's exciting. If you have the opportunity, get out, use the workout equipment over at the park. It's a neat addition to our town, and something that we're happy to have here. Going kind of along the theme of parks, Sundays, yoga in the park over at Indian Meadows. Very proud to announce that I've attended 2 of the past 3. at the behest of my lovely wife, but I have been there and I have enjoyed it. It's very relaxing. It's $5. Liliana Yoga puts it on, and it's a lot of fun. It's very relaxing. And then earlier this week, I met with Vicki Hillis along with members of the Glenville Rotary to discuss the storyboard project that will be going in over at Indian Meadows that Glenville Rotary assists us with a ton of projects. They're assisting with this. This is geared towards putting up essentially little platforms along the kind of main woods trail over by the playground, geared towards younger children. And the idea being that you put a storybook, different pages along the way, and the children kind of run from one site to the next, reading the story. And it's an exciting project and something I'm looking forward to seeing in its completion. And that's all.
Councilwoman Wisdowski.
I just wanted to let you know, I did attend the last meeting of the summer, or before the summer break of the Town Chiefs Association of Glenville, and it was kind of a low-key type of meeting, but a very good meeting to attend. Call volume is actually up a little bit within the town for the departments. They didn't really have a lot of other stuff going on, so a complete excellent meal by West Nile. So, yeah, sit there on summer break until September.
Thank you. Move on to the public hearing, scheduled public hearing regarding the matter for the proposed local law to amend Chapter 255 of the Vehicle and Traffic Law regarding the weight limit restrictions for Baldwin Road, Johns Road, Onderdock Road, Snake Hill Road, Social Lane, Spring Road, Keeman Road, and Van Vorst Road. And this would be to limit all truck traffic to under 4-ton weight limit on those roads. So we'll open the public hearing for that, which is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on that matter? Limiting, yes, Marcia. We just ask that you state the name and address for the record.
Good evening, I'm Marcia Kulak, I live at 29 Baldwin Road. Thank you so much for having us. I think this is a huge step in the right direction for that area of Glenville to help reduce the volume and the weight of the trucks, but really to enhance the safety and the quality of our neighborhoods is very significant. We've been there for 54 years. We paid a lot of taxes to the town of Glenville very happily, but I think it is important for the entire town of Glenville to recognize with the new development going in and with the increased construction that we want to be safe. We really like the quality of our lives to remain the same. And also, I take the hat off to Tommy Chipola for going out there and making sure, along with Mr. Ketzley and Mr. Aragosa, that the rules that were set forth for that development to be followed to the letter so that the surrounding neighborhoods don't have to bear the brunt of that. So I, in a small way, represent a lot of the residents that have concerns over that. I received numerous emails and phone calls, and I think all of you were aware of that concern. So I'm here tonight just to thank you and acknowledge that the action that you took is really very important. But this change in the weight limit to reduce it, I think is a huge step to keep our communities in a condition and a safety level that we would really like, and to keep the quality of our life up. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it, all of you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Susan Visconti, and I live at 234 Spring Road in Glenville. Been there about 26 years, and my husband and I have noticed increased truck traffic from dump trucks, cement trucks, to tri-axle tractor trailers. It's just unbelievable. We think the reason is that they're trying to avoid the traffic lights on Route 50. Maybe it's a shortcut for them, I don't know, but Spring Road is a pretty narrow road. The shoulders are narrow. I think it's unsafe for people to walk on the road with a big truck like that coming. If there's traffic coming the other way, I think your alternative is to jump in the ditch because there's not enough room. Not to mention that I don't think our roads are made for those big heavy trucks. One time we were following one going over Drones Road, and as we went around the corner, you could see the asphalt just starting to crumble, and the last thing we want to do is have to have our roads all resurfaced. And the noise, it's come around 11 o'clock at night, and we're in a residential neighborhood. It just seems kind of ridiculous that they can't use a commercial road. So I'm happy that you're considering this, and I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Regarding the weight limit on those named roads, going once, going twice, seeing none. That public hearing is now closed. We move to the next public hearing, which is a public hearing to hear all those interested in the matter regarding the application for our CDBG application, which is the Community Development Block Grant application, and submission for that through the CFA process. That's a micro enterprise loan that we are applying for, so that if we were funded through this CFA, the small businesses within our community would have access to micro grants, not loans, micro grants. And so we'll open that public hearing and hear anyone who wishes to be heard on that matter. This is for our application to the CFA for CDBG money related to small business micro grant opportunities. We wish to be heard on that. Going once, going twice, seeing none, that public hearing is now closed. We now move to privilege of the floor. This is the opportunity for residents to address the board on any matter in town, any matter at all. Again, I think we'll go through this a couple of times. It's not a Q&A or give and take, but we will take comments and deliberate amongst ourselves on those. If there's something that's particularly pressing that needs to be answered, we will from time to time answer a question, but just a privilege of the floor is an opportunity for the residents to be heard. We have a few folks who signed up. I will go through those first. If you did not sign up and you want to speak, just raise your hand and we'll ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and address the board. And we'll start with the first person signed up, Krista Hawk.
Good evening, my name is Krista Hawk. I live at 428 Bar Height Road in the town of Glenville. Thank you for allowing me to address this body. Good evening, Mr. Ketzel and board members. I would like to thank Mr. Ketzley for meeting with members of our group, the Concerned Citizens of Glenville, last night for almost 3 hours. We appreciate the time you took to hear our concerns, answer our questions, and understand our unwillingness to share your enthusiasm for this project. I'm here this evening to speak against the location of the proposed Bar Height Road gun range. While my neighbors and I all support our police and firemen, we are again appealing to you to reconsider the proposed location. As you know, we will be directly affected by this gun range because of its close proximity to homes, many with small children. If you haven't recently visited our neighborhood, please do so. You need to see how close the homes will be to the gun range, how loud the sound of gunfire is, and the topography of the land. If you haven't walked the site where this gun range will be, please do so. We are concerned about safety and changes to our quality of life should this gun range project proceed. I purchased my first home in Bellevue, in the Bellevue neighborhood of Schenectady in 2002, and I lived there for 13 years. I loved my cute little house, I loved my neighbors, but unfortunately, the neighborhood changed, and my family and I sought to leave city life. We moved to our bucolic farm on Bar Height Road in 2015. We aren't rich. Our equity is in our little farm, and as our group stated in our meeting last night with Mr. Ketzley, our homes and our properties are all that we have. This gun range will affect our property values, and in turn it will affect our children's financial futures. I'm a huge proponent of ongoing training for members of our law enforcement to keep our community safe. I can't state that enough. The Schenectady Police, Schenectady County Sheriff, and the New York State Police have all used my school and even my classroom to train their officers, specifically with their SWAT teams. It's a big deal when we practice lockdowns and violent intruder drills, and police officers come into my classroom with canines, wearing SWAT gear while my students and I shelter in place. I welcome their training, as do my students. This coming September will be my 32nd year teaching in Schenectady. I've seen my students' neighborhoods change and have seen my sweet little neighborhood in Bellevue change in just a few short years. I have seen the impact of violence in my students' communities too. They have shared their experiences with me about neighborhood crime, including the sound of gunfire in their neighborhoods. I don't want my neighbors' children to grow up next to the sounds of gunfire. I'm proud to say that Schenectady High School has earned the distinction as a trauma-free school. The administrators, staff, and teachers have been trained to recognize and treat the effects of childhood toxic stress and adapt instruction to meet the educational needs of students who have experienced adversity. There are 10 types of childhood trauma measured by the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, the ACE study, and it includes questions about students feeling safe in their homes, safe in their school, and safe in their neighborhood. We should not be desensitizing our children to the sounds of gunfire in any neighborhood. The sounds of gunfire do not belong in any child's neighborhood. Although I'm active in my teachers' union, I'm not a political activist. I'm more comfortable standing in front of a classroom or an auditorium filled with middle school and high school kids. It's unusual for me to be at a microphone speaking about my personal thoughts and feelings. So please know how important this issue is to me and my family and my neighbors, many of whom aren't here this evening. I'm hoping that you did your homework. I'm hoping that you investigated alternate sites, some that we discussed last night at our meeting with Mr. Ketzley. I implore you to reconsider the location of the Barhite Road gun range. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next person we have signed up is Billy Bolton.
Hello everyone, my name is Bill Bolton. I live at 436 Wagner Road in Glenville. I'll start off right where Krista started off. I want to thank Mr. Ketzley for coming out last night. I think we had a very productive conversation. I want to also thank Mr. Aragosa, Mr. Godlewski for coming out 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. We also had a very productive conversation. We were able to show both councilmen the location of the gun range, or the proposed area where the gun range would be located. We were able to discuss that we had a handful of neighbors over. It was very productive, and I really appreciate the time you took to come out and speak with us, and I welcome any board member that can make it out. I know if any other board member wants to come out, or if you want to come back out again, you know how to get hold of me, and we can make that happen. I think it's very, very good for us to do that. Last month, when we met, we left the board with questions, questions that we feel still haven't been answered. We had a list of questions that were not only given to you verbally, but also emailed to you. There were questions that we felt were important to not only our community, but for the town of Glenville, for the town's police, and for the board itself to really answer, so that there can be some accountability on decisions being made moving forward. I'm going to go over the questions again. I feel it's important for these questions to be reiterated. We're wondering if the town has considered bringing in a third party to handle the seeker process in total, to make sure that this process is handled fully, and step back from the town board as a decision maker. The idea that the town is proposing this and is also being responsible for making nearly every decision about this seems to be somewhat of a conflict of interest to myself and to my group. We're asking that the town consider making some changes to protocol on how this is handled. We're asking that the town bring this proposal in front of the Schenectady Intermunicipal Watershed Rules and Regulations Board to ensure that this process is thoroughly looked at and thoroughly scrutinized by every municipal group that we can get involved. We want to see the DEC, the EPA, the Glenville Environmental Conservation Commission involved. And I know Mr. Ketzley spoke about that with us last night, and he assured us that those steps would be taken, and I appreciate that. We would like to know whether or not the design firm that is going to be chosen is going to be a design firm that has ever built a range in the past. Building gun ranges and firing ranges in the 21st century is a lot different than it was 30, 40 years ago. So railroad ties and a little roof over your head is not enough. These are the kind of questions that we feel we need answers to determine what extent the town is willing to go to protect the neighboring communities, the area, and ultimately the police officers using the range itself. We're hoping, as a community, that we will be informed every step of the way when the town decides to start scheduling for noise, soil, surface water drainage, and construction near the property and landfill, so that we can be part of that process. I understand that seeker can go to a scoping, and we can be involved directly when precedence is set for communities showing deep concern over a project. Scoping can be requested via seeker so that the community can be involved every step of the way. And that's what we're asking. We're asking to be involved, to be educated, informed, and involved. We discussed fencing last night. I don't want to go back over that again. I know Mr. Ketsley said he's working on that, working on the idea of fencing off the area, because currently there's no fencing between the properties and the proposed area for the gun range. The cost of the range, the original $30,000 estimate that we were given for this range was based on a very small range that was designed in the initial stages of this, which has now changed from a 100-foot wide pavilion, 200 feet long, to the potential of a long-range firing range and possible evasive maneuvering setup for the police officers to be able to move and fire, which is going to add exponentially to the price of keeping rounds within the range. Ricochets, I mean, there's a litany of reasons why protection is needed from a firing range. Mistakes happen, obviously, ricochets happen, and we've gone over the lead concerns that we had as well. The idea that the range would be built so close to the runoff that sits 300 feet upstream from the town's zone 2 of the aquifer is a major concern of ours, and we're curious and concerned as to how the town is going to adjust the design and the location of this to compensate for that. A lot of what I was going to say tonight had to do with the vote, obviously. So I'm going to adjust that. I'm going to thank Mr. Ketsley and the rest of the town board for postponing this vote. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the responsible thing to do. I do feel that the town hasn't done its due diligence to hold a vote at this point because of the fact that there is no set in stone proposal showing specific locations. I understand that the immunity doesn't necessarily revolve around specifics of a design of a proposal, but having such a critical area that you're building in, being the location of the landfill and the properties and the questions that we had for you, I do feel that postponing the vote was the right thing to do. And I ask that moving forward, the town board considers the design of this proposal something that we need to get lined up and see before we move farther. Because not having a design, not having a proposal that shows how this is going to work and where it's specifically going to be located is a major concern. To make decisions about something without actually having an idea of what it is or where it is seems absurd to me. And I'm not a politician, I'm not on a town board, but the idea of sitting here and you 5 or 4 today having to vote on something without knowing what it is or where it is, it seems absurd. So I'm glad that this vote was postponed, and I can only hope that when we meet again, there is a proposal, and I can only hope that the town has decided that holding this range to the highest possible safety standards is of the utmost priority of what the town is doing. We need to make sure that this range is designed in a way to protect everyone, including the officers using the range. I want to thank you again.
Thank you. Marcia, I have you next, but you already spoke. Okay. David, Hyla?
I'm actually gonna just not speak right now. I'm talking to my neighbors today. I really appreciate you coming in last night, but I wasn't able to make it, so I'm hopping in first.
Okay, thank you. And Susan, I think you spoke on the wait list, sorry. Okay, so that's everyone who has signed up. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at first debate floor? Yes.
My name is Pete Looker. I live at 1965 Amsterdam Road. I'm here, as I have been numerous times before, to continue to ask that the town enforce the law about the glare and the illegal lights at Old Domination Trucking across the street from our house. I stopped in the town hall last week and talked to a gentleman who said he had never been out there, but who had been assured that they were following all the rules and regulations. Now, if you are driving from, say, the old landfill where they want to put the gun shop, the gun shooting range, and come out Route 5 towards Scotia, you will be blinded by these bright lights. The law says the lights off-street parking, loading will be configured in a manner not to reflect on adjoining properties or streets. Light sources shall be shielded and projected downward. That doesn't seem to be brain science. It's very simple. You put a shade on it and aim it down on your property. All lights associated with parking areas will be directed onto the parking area, away from adjacent properties and public right-of-way. They continue to light up our bedroom at night. They continue to wipe out over half the stars that we used to be able to see in the sky. And it doesn't do any good for some of the animals and the vegetation as well to be lit up that way 24 hours a day. So I would, again, request that shields be put on those lights. It's not difficult. We put a shield on a light. It's like that light over there, so I don't see it. It's aiming down. And I can't understand why this corporation from out of state can flagrantly violate the law. And I did a thing of, well, they were tested, no, they modified them. The only testing I have seen was from the engineer for their company a couple of years ago, and he showed the lumens in the area, some of which are 10 and 20-fold what they had projected in their approved plan. So I would appreciate it if those lights were all shielded and shaded down. It also might not blind some of the drivers coming up that way that they might possibly get in an accident. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? Representative Ford. Yes, sir.
I'm Al McChesney, 3167 Washout Road in Glenville. And I know in the last meeting I attended on the shooting range, it seems like most of the concerns were noise, contamination, and safety. And I mean, no matter where you live, in any community, in any city, in any farm, country, you're going to have noise. So if you live next to a farm, you're going to hear tractors and cows all day, all night. If you live by railroad tracks, you're going to hear trains. If you live near 890 or the thruway, you're going to hear traffic. It's everywhere. Noise is everywhere. But your brain has an amazing way of drowning out the noises that it doesn't feel you're necessary to hear. Like I said last time I was here, we live in the middle of a lot of shooting. We live in between two ranges and lots of other people that shoot. And it just becomes a sound that you don't even notice. Even yesterday, my wife said, oh, there's shooting going on over wherever, and I'm like, I didn't even realize it until she mentioned it, then I heard it. It's just, after you've been around it, it's gone. You don't even hear it. You don't notice it. And as far as contamination, I'm not sure what went on in your meetings the other day or what anybody else has known, but for many years now, ammunition manufacturers have been making non-lead ammunition to be used on practice ranges and even to be used for hunting. And some of those manufacturers are also producing ammo that disintegrates when it hits something hard, such as a rock or steel or something like that. So the ricochets are a very minor problem, but that would eliminate ricochets because they just disintegrate. So I don't know, it seems to me that there's not a whole lot of problems with that shooting range being where it is, because no matter what's put anywhere, it's always going to be next to somebody. So I'm just saying that I feel it's a right move. I'm a tax-paying resident of Glenville, so my taxes pay the police department, pays the Glenville, so they work for me. I want them to be safe. I want them to be able to practice. I want them to be able to train. And as I said last time, I am, and my wife is, we're 100% for the shooting range for our police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Going once, going twice. Yes, sir.
My name is John Winooski. I'm sorry to admit this is my first board meeting. And I'm not sure about the protocol here, but I would like to go back to number 5 concerning the highways or the roads and the load rating. included as part of a definition of the load rating of those roads, I'm not sure those roads will take 4 tons as far as that's concerned. This is especially important too, since we've been told that there will be no repairs or repaving of those roads until after all the construction is done with the Amador housing. So it's a very important item for us. If somebody could answer that question, give us reasons why, that would be very helpful.
I know the highway superintendent's here, but just quickly, these are roads that have had truck traffic as regular occurrence. Typically, the roads inside the developments haven't seen that kind of truck traffic as far as a development truck route. And so this is really to address the tractor trailers and larger trucks that have found their own routes that they really shouldn't be using. They're not going through developments, because there's nowhere to go inside the development.
Well, we have a lot of truck traffic in our area. Heavy trucks that go like every 2 minutes.
As far as for the development, right? Well, they have a site plan approval they can use those roads because they have a site plan approval to use those roads. So when they're done, the trucks that size aren't allowed on town roads, as I understand, inside the development. Is that correct, Tom? Correct. So it's already exempt. Tom Capola is the highway superintendent, and maybe after the meeting you can talk to him a little bit about it. But the town roads are already have that weight limit, other than for purposes of local traffic. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this, on privilege of the floor? Going once, going twice, seeing none. Privilege of the floor is now closed. I will address some of the questions if you guys want to stay before you leave right now at supervisor's comments to the board regarding this project. And I'll limit my comments tonight just to this project because I know we have a lot on the agenda and we want to get to some of the other items. A lot has been said about this project. As far as having third parties look at it, that's what the secret process is for. So as we go through the secret process, DEC, all the agencies, EPA, all of the concerns on all of these types of issues are addressed in the seeker, and that's what the seeker is for. Just to get everyone on the same page, because we did have an opportunity to meet for 3 hours last night almost, and I appreciate Mr. Bolton, your hospitality of a beautiful house, and thank you for allowing me to be there and have it came out a little black and blue, but it was fun. So really why these resolutions were pulled tonight is, we're listening to the residents and we're trying to react and trying to accommodate the concerns. What I explained to the residents last night is I am personally myself, and I know Deputy Supervisor Rosbowski's been working on this as well, trying to really pursue 3 tracks at this particular juncture. And this is what I told the residents last night. The first track is to continue as we are. Let the seeker unfold, let the answers, let the questions be answered, and let us go through the process and get the answers that we're looking for, and continue on that process. The second track I started is to look for an alternate site. That was one of the things I heard loud and clear at the last board meeting. I heard again last night, and I think we talked through as a group some ideas potentially on trying to find an alternative site. It's not easy. It's not, the criteria is it has to be in the town of Glenville. The criteria is it probably have to be in West Glenville. One of the reasons why we've done what we're doing with what we would have taken up tonight in item number 15, declaring it a public or a governmental use, is because in zoning there is nothing that lists the governmental use in any of our zoning code. It doesn't list a municipal-owned gun range anywhere. It doesn't list, for example, a municipal-owned water plant anywhere. So when you do these projects, you have to determine them to be governmental in nature so that it can be cited And so you are exempt from zoning. That's why there's nothing in the zoning law that indicates that it would be allowed in a particular zone. But when you look at West Glenville, what you see in the rural agricultural zone is that gun clubs are allowed. And so a reasonable person would look at that and say, well, if gun clubs are allowed and shooting is allowed, then a municipal-owned gun range makes sense. That's why it makes sense in that zoning. We're not exempting ourselves from the code necessarily, and of course there's still other codes we would have to follow, including DEC rules and regulations, state, federal laws. So really it was, as I explained to the residents last night, these were formalities that you can't come to a conclusion that this is not a government use. You just can't do that. There's no logical explanation to say municipal government is not a government use. So track 2 is to try to find a different location. But that different location would likely, if it existed at all, be West Glenville, because that's where gun ranges are allowed. Gun clubs are allowed, to be specific. As you know in zoning, if it doesn't specifically say it, it's not allowed. And that's why governmental nature determination has to be done if we're going to continue. The third option I said I would pursue because it came up at the last meeting is to try to find funding for an indoor range, either on that site or on the Bly Road site. That is unlikely, and there's a lot of reasons for it after talking to the chief and getting obviously the input of the police department, but it really would not be financially feasible for the space you would need if you wanted to do any long gun shooting. You can only use the indoor range for pistols if you were going to be able to afford it at all, because long gun shooting needs so much, longer lanes, so many longer lanes that it would not be feasible because it'd have to be. How many yards, Chief, would you have to do a long gun at?
We do 50 to 100 yards.
50 to 100. So you're building a building the size of a football field in length anyway, which would not be feasible. But that said, I'm pursuing it, I'm looking at it. There's also other things the chief indicated to me that he needs that would not be able to be achieved inside an indoor range. The basic maneuvers that they would need to, so you just don't stand and shoot all the time, you'd be running and moving and shooting at targets. Also work with the vehicle, door shooting, things like that can't be done inside a range. So that seems highly unlikely, that option, but we'll pursue it. And so it seems as though, as Ms. Hawk said, she hopes I did my homework. It was only last night that I got it, but you are a teacher, aren't you?
I am.
Yes. But I have started it, and we do have some things moving, and obviously I can't comment on them now, but it really necessitated the need to take a step back on this and see where some of those ideas go. As far as the environmental, the chief talked about the different, had a conversation with me anyway about the different ammunition that can be used. There are bullets that break apart and basically disintegrate, not made of lead apparently, but very, very, very expensive. And also would create a situation that our officers are trained with bullets that they don't use, which isn't necessarily useful. So we have to try to replicate real life situations as much as possible, and those bullets don't do that. But apparently there's ammunition, or the range ammunition comes encased in copper, which encases the lead, so that would really be another protection against the environment on top of the lead bullet remediation, but having these encapsulated in copper would obviously help protect the environment more. So I think just to kind of summarize, we're at a point right now where we're working on 3 different options. We're pursuing this, we're continuing to pursue this. If we take this up in August as opposed to tonight, it's not a big deal, these resolutions. But by then, hopefully we would have some resolution on the other 2 tracks and then have some confidence that we're moving forward either with this current proposal or one of the other, hopefully, options. While I'm here, I don't know if there's any questions or that you may have. And I'll limit my comments just to the gun range tonight because I know we want to get to the rest of the resolutions. Thank you. Okay, and so we'll take up the next item on the agenda, which is item number 9. Actually, we'll take a minute. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll take up resolution number 9, issuing a negative declaration pursuant to seeker as it relates to a food and beverage processing facility not to exceed 10,000 square feet in the general business zone. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second. I'll second. Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution is in connection with this proposed zoning text amendment to the Glenville Code Section 270-19B. This resolution specifically pertains to the Town Board of Town of Glenville as a secret lead agency issuing a negative declaration concluding that there will be no significant adverse environmental impact associated with this proposed zoning text amendment.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the roll.
Councilman Aravalosa?
Aye.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 10, adopting the local law number 2 of 2018 regarding the very facility we just talked about. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Moved and seconded. Do I have a discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution, if passed, would address the actual proposed zoning text amendment which pertains to the Town of Glenville Code Section 270-19B, subsection 17. It would add the language food and beverage processing and distribution facility not exceeding 10,000 square feet of gross floor area to the list of uses permitted by site plan review within the general business zoning district.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the roll.
Councilman Aravalosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution adopting local law number 3 of 2018 regarding amending the chapter 255 of the code of the Town of Glenville regarding the vehicle and traffic codes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Since the councilman is not here who's sponsoring this, I'll just set the resolution up. This is obviously the public hearing we just held, and this would add to the exclusion that's already in town code regarding not to exceed 4 tons maximum gross weight of a vehicle on the road, and that would be the road, roads of Baldwin Road, Browns Road, Ondergont, Snake Road, Sosha, Spring, Teeman, and Van Vorst, and you can see exactly where those would take place in each of those, where it says between the intersections of, and we'll go through all those, but this would enact that into codes. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please go ahead.
Councilman Aravalosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 12, authorizing the submission of the application of the CDBG grant and the CFA. Do I have a motion?
So
Do
moved.
I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution, if passed, would authorize you to submit the CDBG application to New York State Office of Community Renewal and to act in connection with the submission of the application, including the execution of all required certifications and forms, and to provide such additional information as may be required.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the roll.
Councilman Aravalosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 13, authorizing the purchase of a loader. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution proposes that the Highway Department currently uses a 2016 Cat 930M loader. It's in need of 4 new tires and to repairs, backup camera, and other assorted minor repairs. The cost of this collectively total approximately $13,000 as estimated by the highway superintendent. The town has also received a quote from Southworth Milton Inc. To purchase a new 2018 Cat 930M loader available under New York State contract pricing with the stipulation that Southworth Milton would accept the town's existing 2016 loader as in trade, resulting in a net expense to the town of $15,000 to acquire the new 2018 Cat 930M loader. The net expense of this amount of $15,000 is provided for within the 2018 budget appropriation. So, should this resolution pass, it would authorize the Commissioner of Public Works to purchase one 2018 Cat 930M loader at a gross cost of $148,933 from Southworth Milton under state contract, and the expense for said equipment to be charged to account D, budget line account as included in the budget. The 2016 Cat 930 loader would be deemed surplus and eligible for disposal in the most cost-effective manner. Tommy, you're here, so you would be trading, just so I was kind of along, you're trading in one for a brand new one, and the net cost is $15,000, which is budgeted.
Correct.
Yes, I kind of got a little deep in the weeds there. So.
Yeah. One important, I
I'm
think,
trying to sum up, but it didn't work.
one important point for the board to know is that currently the current loader has maintenance needs, particularly for new tires that are around $15,000 cost. $13,000 for new tires. So for $15,000, you get a brand new vehicle as opposed to spending $13,000 on that vehicle.
And I believe we get some type of warranty with the new vehicle too, which is kind of a big deal.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Catzley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 14, authorizing the purchase of a Silverado. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, the water department is currently utilizing a 2008 Ford F-250, which is nearing the end of its useful life. The Commissioner of Public Works recommends that we use New York State contract pricing to purchase a 2018 Chevy Silverado for use by the water department. We've received a bid from Mangino Chevrolet in Amsterdam under state contract number at a total cost of $37,361, including delivery. The purchase of this vehicle has been provided for within the 2018 budget. So if we pass this resolution, the Commissioner of Public Works will be authorized to purchase one 2018 Chevy Silverado K2 service body at a cost not to exceed $37,400 with the expense for the vehicle charged to the appropriate budget line as included in the 2018 budget.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Catzley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 17, since 15 and 16 have been removed. Resolution authorizing the supervisor to apply for a grant funding for the Yates Mansion through the CFA. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second, and since it is moved in second, before we begin the discussion, I do have to make an amendment to the actual resolution, and it's really a housekeeping amendment. If you go down to the now therefore be it resolved, it reads that the town of Glenville applied. It should read that the town board of the town of Glenville. I'm 17, right? 17. That the town board of the town of Glenville, and then instead of apply, is authorizes for an application for financial assistance. So we would have to add those words, they're just missing from the text. It's the town board of the town of Glenville authorizing an application for financial assistance. So I need a motion for that amendment.
I'll move it.
Moved.
I'll second it.
Seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Catzley?
Yes, resolution passes. The resolution is amended, and as amended, it is also before us for business. Any comments on the actual resolution? Again, this is for allowing us to apply for CFA funding for the Yates Mansion, which is due July 27th. Seeing no other comments, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 18, authorizing the submittal of, to the CFA as well for yet another project. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second, any discussion?
Just that this, Mr. Supervisor, again, this is essentially we're trying to get money for projects, which is always good, and we're seeking that, make that application to the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, and it's, we're looking to potentially expand off of Mountain Park, which would be fantastic.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 19, authorizing yet another submittal to the CFA regarding specifically to ESD for funding of the Green Mountain Trail System. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Moved in second and third. Any comments?
Just, Mr. Supervisor, this is, again, towns that actively seeking funding for projects, looking at, in this resolution, looking at seeking out money for a townwide trail system, specifically looking at the bike path. So, again, this is a good use of resources, trying to get more money for projects.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 20, authorizing the purchase of playground equipment for New Meadows. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. I did speak to Ms. Hills a little bit about this, but I'm still, and I apologize, just a little bit confused. Are we paying for the replacement? I know it's covered by warranty. How is that?
Some of it's covered by
Okay.
warranty, some of it is not.
Okay, but it's all budgeted though.
Well, is it budgeted? Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is for essentially new replacement playground equipment for the Indian Meadows playground. Obviously, it's in our town, essentially our town's children's and the neighboring town's children's best interest. Looking to ensure that we have safe playground equipment, and it is a budgeted expense.
And you can use the councilman after you open.
Well, very true.
We do periodically have to have our equipment inspected, and this came from an inspection, so it's pretty much required maintenance. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, approving monthly departmental reports for June 2018. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moving in second. Any discussion?
The supervisor, this is a standard resolution that comes from the board regularly. It's to approve the monthly reports that we as board members receive via email. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review the reports from the various department heads here at the town, and I would thank them for the preparation of those reports.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. We'll move on to our last resolution before new business, which is add-on resolution 1, accepting the lowest responsible bid submitted by Bass Hatfield regarding construction of a sidewalk. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'm so excited about this. This resolution is in connection with Phase 1 of the Glenwood Road sidewalk improvements. Only one bid was received for this work, low bid and only bid was, and responsible bid, I should point out as well, was within the RFP that was put out, was submitted by Bass Hatfield Construction on Crescent Fisher Ferry Road in Clifton Park in the amount of $66,666. We want to try to obviously have this done in this construction season, so should this resolution pass, would authorize you to accept the lowest responsible bid as submitted by Bass Hatfield Construction in the amount of $66,666 for the construction of Glenridge Road sidewalk improvements Phase 1.
You ever said that? Could you just do one penny?
I said
I
the
know.
same thing to
I know.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski. I said, not, you know,
It's kind of a bad,
yeah.
It's okay.
any questions or comments?
So this is the sidewalk that'll take us up to the top of the hill here.
Take us through, right, through the History Center.
Just as far as the eminent domain issue, do we still have outstanding issues?
Yes.
Is that-
And we're working on that.
The next step, we've had an order to show cause signed by Supreme Court directing a hearing date on the easements for August 1st. So the remaining parties served and have their opportunity to be heard, not on taking, and then there'll just be the issue of compensation.
There's three of them. One is in Georgia, and one lives in, the owner lives in England, and one is.
And that's for the second phase, is that?
Yes.
And this 66,000 is within the scope of the budget of the project.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record your vote.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Goddamowski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. No other resolution since add-on 2 has been taken off the agenda, so we'll move to new business and start on 9. Right, Councilman Aragosa.
I have no new business.
No. Councilman Wozzachowski.
No business.
And I have nothing new either, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.